Tip number 1, change the chord on the offbeat. So if these are the beats where the kicks go, 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on, change the chords on the offbeats right in between each kick. So for example, here, 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 or here, the 8's in between each kick. You don't have to change every chord, but more often than not it sounds better. For example, compare this to this. On a technical level, it's adding syncopation and offbeat rhythm, subconsciously, but that's why. Tip number 2, to extend a chord progression, to take, say, a 4-bar progression and turn it into an 8-bar progression, double it, and shift a note or two, up or down an octave. Hold Shift and press the up and down arrows. Experimentally. It's the most natural way to extend a progression. It's similar but different. Double it and shift a note up or down an octave. Similar but different. So it's predictable but unpredictable. Predictable so it's not jarring, but unpredictable enough to keep it exciting. Tip number 3, use a chord generating plugin. I like this one. It allows me to use chords I just wouldn't use otherwise. I don't really know music theory. I know triads and inversions and the basics, in fact, the basics, but almost immediately I get completely lost. So if I want to do some more interesting chord progressions, like this, I need some help, and that's why these are great. Here's another one, an app called Suggester on the iPad. You can just tap away and see what connects with you emotionally. So you can create progressions you just wouldn't think to do or wouldn't try to do otherwise. Excellent. Tip number 4, if you have a chord progression where some of the notes are in the sub-bass range. So in this progression, these notes are in the sub-bass range. These notes play frequencies below 100 Hz. If in doubt, just look in a spectrum analyzer to see. If you do have notes like this, try separating them out. Separating out the sub-notes and applying different unison settings. Unison for the high notes, so it's nice and thick, but unison 1 for the sub-notes. And so ensuring that the sub-bass, the lowest frequencies, are mono, which is what we want. If we don't split the notes up and just convert bass to mono, like so, the unison makes the sub-bass move about, which is sometimes nice, but oftentimes not. Not to mention, we're just not in control of this. It's pretty random movement. Whereas if we split the subnotes out and play the subnotes in unison 1, it's consistent. And for the complete story about low end, do see my course on Groove Theory. I start at the beginning and build up each idea, one after another, to fully explain what's going on, how and why we do things like making the sub-bass mono. And finally, tip number 5, micro-tuning. Have you heard of it? Micro-tuning moves the notes about a bit. Let me show you on some sine waves and see how with different micro-tunings in the same chord progression, the frequencies move a bit. The frequencies move just a tiny amount, hence micro-tuning. You're probably wondering why. So for example, if you have a sawtooth wave and lots of harmonics, see how with different microtunings in the same chord progression, we can change that movement with microtuning. Take a listen to this. interesting, dialing in the movement with different micro tunings. Just the tiniest change lower down in the harmonics, changing the way the higher harmonics interact. And so changing the movement. To fully explain why it gets a bit too far down the rabbit hole of mathematics. So let's not go chasing after rabbits, and instead maybe think about it visually. I think that's the easiest way to internalize why. And as I say, I use Icarus. You could do this manually if you have lots of free time on your hands. Just slightly detuning individual synths. That would take forever. Probably easier just to find a synth with microtuning. Others must exist. Again, this is something I want to explore more myself. I find it interesting, but that might say more about my brain than anything else. But it's something to explore. Microtuning. 5 tips complete. My name is Multiplier. Chords.